Hi, it's Carrie. We're going to look at a few just random systematic review methods today. It's something I like to do from time to time. I figured I'd invite you along. We'll see how it goes. So I'm here in PubMed, and you can access systematic reviews by searching for a subset of literature systematic and field tag SB. So I'll hit enter, and then I'm just going to show you what that does. So I look up PubMed, systematic review subset, and it'll tell us what's being searched. So we're looking for systematic review in the title, some publication types, not comments, not protocols. Do with that what you will. It works for me. And we'll look at just the first that come up. I have it sorted by best match, which also appears to be pretty recent. So let's just take a look at 3 or 4. Number 1. So I don't know these people. I don't know the authors. Don't recognize any of them. Doesn't appear that a librarian has been involved. And the full text is embargoed until July 1st. It's currently June 26th, so we won't be able to see the full text as far as I can tell. And then let's look at the abstract. It'll be hard for me to read and talk at the same time. But we see a typo here, but I think that's a mistake of PubMed, because if we go out to the journal page, it's not there. So I can't access the full text, but let's look at this again. They searched PubMed, PsycInfo, Google Scholar, and Cochrane Central, that's clinical trials, using the keywords misophonia, decreased sound tolerance, selective sound sensitivity, or decreased sound sensitivity. And really, I'm only interested in the methods, so I'm not going to comment too much on the rest of the abstract, although I do kind of wish they had looked at PRISMA-Abstract reporting. So if you're doing a systematic review, PRISMA are the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and in meta-analyses, and they do have a checklist for abstracts. So it just makes it a little bit easier to read and understand for transparency's sake if you're preparing to read or report a systematic review in the abstract. So that's one thing I would note here. And then if we look at this, of the 169 available records for initial screening, 33 studied misophonia treatments specifically. So I'm going to go to the MESH database. I'm curious about how misophonia is indexed in the literature. So let's look up misophonia. And this is actually a supplementary concept for the dislike of certain trigger sounds. I can relate to that. There are no other synonyms or terms given here in this entry to give us clues for how else this might be talked about. So let's just add it to the search builder and we'll search PubMed. We get 16 results. If we add misophonia, let's say TW, that's text word, then we get 169. So we pretty much got exactly what they got. If we wanted to see if there's like misophonics, there's not. It doesn't change the results. So without using their other keywords, I got what they got, which is pretty interesting. So I say nice job for putting the search strategy here, even in the abstract. And it was reproducible, at least up to a point. Kudos. Let's look at another one. I'm going to close some of these windows here. I don't read French, so I'm going to skip that one. Let's look at number 3. They have a really nice abstract here, broken up into a structured abstract. And this is really nice that they said the date of their search. It's really important that we get a whole date and not just a month or a year. For reproducibility's sake, we want to know the date of the search. And let's see if we can see the article itself. This is the abstract again, so I want to go right to the methodology that's in the manuscript. So they had a number of questions they wanted to answer, and if you keep scrolling, it talks about the literature search and selection described and presented in the PRISMA P flow diagram. I think that's a mistake. PRISMA P is a protocol, but there's a PRISMA flow diagram, and that's here. So they've searched Embase, Medline, and Web of Science. I would like to know on what platform they searched Medline. Medline's available through a number of platforms, at least 3. And Web of Science has a number of different databases included, depending on your university or institution subscription. So that's something we always want to note, is what's involved in your Web of Science subscription, and you can find that in advanced search. And Embase too. Embase is available on 2 different platforms to my knowledge. So they haven't noted the platforms, but they have noted the databases. Nice job. And the results for each, and as I noticed, the date. And I think this means that they searched it starting in April of 2020 and then up through July 2021, because later they say without limiting the date. So that's not totally clear, but I'm just happy they used the date at all. If we go to table 1, it shows us the search. And actually this is syntax for Medline and Embase on the Ovid platform. So that's what I'm going to presume that they did. The asterisks are showing up weird, but I think that's a copy editing problem. And everything looks actually really nice and reproducible, and I'm really pleased with that. So this is the Medline and Embase search on the Ovid platform, and then over here is Web of Science. And they did a great job with that as well. Web of Science doesn't have subject headings, so here where we see a subject heading in Medline or Embase for colitis, we don't see it equivocated, is that a right word, in Web of Science. They've just used the keyword. So that looks really lovely. So nice job. I'll leave this one, and let's look at another one. Silicosis and tuberculosis, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Again, I don't recognize any of these names. It looks like they're from a lot of different places. We'll look at the abstract. This is great. They had a date, again, September 6, 2022, using PubMed and Embase with the following keywords. Now, I don't like to go by the abstract necessarily, so even if it's not completely elaborated here, it might be more elaborated in the manuscript. And then they used silicosis or silicoses or pneumoconiosis or pneumoconioses and tuberculosis. So it's not nested, right? It doesn't look like it's going to work out, but it actually works out just fine. Let's go back here to PubMed. We'll paste it. And right, this would have been a concept that probably should be in parentheses because we're pairing it with and tuberculosis. But PubMed does wild things sometimes. And if we run the search and then go to advanced and then look at the search details, it actually did nest this. So it worked out just fine. However, let's go back to the record. And if we go to the manuscript version, we do have access, or I do have access. And so I'll scroll down to the methods. And they don't totally elaborate on where they searched Embase, whether it was Ovid, whether it was embase.com. But they do have a search date and a search strategy, and this one actually is tagged and nested. Let's see if we get the same thing. Actually, we get more. I think they used a couple additional keywords here. Yeah, I think they used additional keywords. And if we look at the PRISMA Flow Diagram, it looks like we got what they would have gotten too, because when they searched PubMed on September 6, 2022, they got 2,335. And today we got 2,364. It's been a while, so that makes perfect sense. One thing I had noted when I was looking at this earlier, let's go to the mesh database. And this isn't really their fault. This isn't a problem per se. Actually, it's not a problem at all, and I'll tell you why in just a second. If we go to silicosis, there is a mesh term for it, and it looks like they use the mesh term. But under the mesh term, there's two narrower terms, anthracosilicosis and silicotuberculosis. Seems like that would have been relevant here. Did they use it? Silicotuberculosis. Doesn't look like they did. That's a reason why looking at the medical subject headings are really important, because it looks like they found silicosis, but they didn't think to look for silicotuberculosis, which may have been relevant. However, when you search with mesh, the default is to explode. I've talked about that in other videos. So when we search silicosis, unless we turn off explosion, which we would do here, then we are searching both of these terms. However, that doesn't translate well into other databases. So let me just show you the difference. We'll add the search builder, mesh, search PubMed, and we get 7,901. If we say mesh no explode, we should get fewer results because it's not going to be searching those two terms. Didn't make a huge difference actually, a couple hundred. So yeah, that's just some of the things that I do when I'm looking at systematic review methods. Look at the abstract, but you can't judge things based on the abstract, so then it's important to look at the full text. And these three did a pretty nice job of not only having a date of the search, but also listing the search, which was reproducible. I'm impressed because I don't usually have such good luck right away when I look at the systematic review subset. Thanks for joining me for looking at methods. I hope you learned something new.